She wandered the market in rags, barefoot and muttering to herself. People mocked her, chased her away, and called her a witch. No one knew who she truly was, or why she had chosen to live among insults and stones. But this was no ordinary madness. She was searching, watching, testing hearts. Would anyone show kindness when there was nothing to gain? Would any woman see a human being instead of a burden? And could such a person be worthy of becoming the wife of her powerful son? As days turned into trials and cruelty grew louder, one small act would quietly change everything. Stay till the end of this story, because the choice she makes will shock a city and redefine destiny itself. Before we dive in, please like, share, and comment. And if you're just tuning in, subscribe for more powerful stories. The roar of engines thundered across the airport runway long before the private jet touched the ground. Sirens wailed in synchronized rhythm, escort vehicles gliding into position as if rehearsed for weeks. On the observation deck, journalists jostled for space, their cameras trained on the descending aircraft. Drummers in rich Ankara pounded talking drums that echoed ancient praise songs into the Lagos sky. Nigeria had been waiting. When the wheels finally kissed the tarmac, a hush fell, brief, reverent, then erupted into cheers. Flags waved, chants rose, phones flashed like fireflies in daylight. Matthew Femi was home. The jet door opened slowly, ceremoniously. A tall figure emerged, dressed not in flamboyance but in quiet authority. A navy blue suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His posture was calm, controlled, yet commanding. The kind of presence that did not need noise to be noticed. Matthew paused at the top of the stairs and looked out. This was the land of his birth, the soil his father had ruled, the country that had shaped his name even while he built empires abroad. Oil, technology, logistics, real estate. From London to Dubai, from Zurich to New York, his influence stretched far beyond borders. Yet nothing stirred him like this moment. At the foot of the stairs stood Queen Mother Teresa. She wore flowing ivory lace embroidered with gold, coral beads resting heavily against her chest. Her back was straight, her chin lifted, her eyes sharp and unwavering. Though age had traced soft lines around her eyes, power still lived there, undiluted, unchallenged. She was not just Matthew's mother. She was the widow of Chief Gregory Femi, a man whose name alone once silenced rooms. A political kingmaker, a business colossus, a traditional force whose blessings were sought and whose anger was feared. When he died, many thought his empire would crumble. It didn't. Teresa held it together with intelligence, discipline, and an iron will wrapped in grace. As Matthew descended the stairs, she felt her throat tighten. She had watched him grow from a curious boy into a man the world respected. She had sent him away to protect him. Now he had returned, complete. He reached her and did something unexpected. He knelt. "Mama," he said softly. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Billionaires did not kneel. Powerful men did not bow, but Matthew Femi did. Teresa placed both hands on his head, emotion flickering briefly across her composed face. "My son," she said, "welcome home." The celebrations that followed were nothing short of legendary. A motorcade stretched for miles. Streets were cleared. Helicopters hovered overhead. At the mansion that night, chandeliers blazed as dignitaries filled every hall. Senators, governors, foreign investors, traditional rulers, bishops, imams. Music flowed, wine poured, toasts were raised. Here's to the future, to the heir, to the lion's son. But amid the noise, Teresa watched quietly. She noticed how women smiled too widely when Matthew passed, how eyes lingered, how conversations shifted when his name was mentioned. She had seen this before. Desire dressed as affection, ambition disguised as love. After midnight, when the last guest departed and the house finally exhaled into silence, mother and son sat on the veranda overlooking the gardens. The moon was high. Crickets sang. Matthew loosened his cufflinks and stared into the darkness. "Mama," he said. "Yes, my son." "I want a wife." Teresa turned toward him, a gentle smile forming. "That is good," she said. "A man should not walk alone." But Matthew did not smile back. "I don't know how to find a decent woman," he continued. Every woman I meet sees my name before my face, my money before my heart. He sighed. They love what I am, not who I am. Teresa felt something twist inside her chest. She had feared this moment. You have options, she said carefully. Yes, Matthew replied. Too many, and that is the problem. He looked at her then, truly vulnerable. I don't want a wife who will stay only while the wealth remains. I want someone who would stand by me even if everything disappeared. Teresa studied her son in the moonlight. She saw the boy he once was, the one who shared his lunch at school, who cried when servants were mistreated, who questioned injustice even when it benefited him. The world had polished him, sharpened him, but it had not hardened him, and that was both his strength and his danger. Rest, she said finally. Let me think. That night, Queen Mother Teresa did not sleep. She sat alone in her private sitting room long after the lights went out, memories crowding her mind. She remembered women who had married for wealth and stayed for power. She remembered men destroyed by beautiful lies. She remembered promises that evaporated when money dried up. If gold attracts thieves, she whispered into the silence, then let me hide the gold. Her eyes hardened with resolve. To find truth, she murmured, one must remove advantage. By dawn, her decision was made, and somewhere in the city, fate stirred, unaware that a queen was about to step into rags, and a market girl's destiny was about to change forever. Dawn crept into the mansion quietly, filtering through tall curtains and gilded windows. But Queen Mother Teresa had not slept. The night had passed with her seated in a high-backed chair, hands folded on her lap, eyes open, alert, calculating. She had ruled in palaces and negotiated in rooms where one wrong word could cost lives. She had buried a husband whose enemies smiled at his funeral and waited for weakness that never came. If there was one thing Teresa understood, it was human nature. How greed wore the mask of affection and how kindness often appeared only when profit followed. Her son's words echoed in her mind. They love what I am, not who I am. She rose slowly and walked to the window. Below, gardeners trimmed hedges with mechanical precision. Everything around her was order, wealth, control. But love, true love, could not be commanded. I will not give my son to a lie, she whispered. By mid-morning, she summoned her most trusted aide, Baba Sul, an elderly man who had served the Femi household since before Matthew was born. He entered quietly and bowed deeply. You sent for me, Your Majesty? Teresa studied him for a long moment. If I asked you to protect my secret, even from my son, would you? Baba Sul's eyes did not waver. I would protect it with my life. She nodded. Good, because what I am about to do will shock the world. She explained her plan slowly. As the words unfolded, Baba Sule's face shifted from surprise to disbelief to fear. You want to pretend to be mad? He asked carefully. Teresa's lips curved faintly. Madness is the only disguise that strips people of politeness. When they think you have nothing, they reveal who they truly are. But Your Majesty, people can be cruel, dangerous. I know, she said calmly. That is the point. By afternoon, arrangements were in motion. Discreetly, no announcements, no rumors. Even Matthew was kept in the dark, told only that his mother needed rest and would be unavailable for some days. Behind locked doors, Teresa shed her silk wrappers and coral beads. Tailors brought torn clothes sourced from refuse dumps in forgotten corners of the city. A wig maker crafted long, filthy dreadlocks, matted, uneven, convincing. A makeup artist aged her face with bruised shadows and cracked lips. When she looked into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The queen was gone. In her place stood a woman the world would not respect. That evening, under the fading glow of streetlights, Queen Mother Teresa stepped into the city as a mad woman. She wandered into the open market barefoot, muttering softly, eyes distant. Traders froze. Some laughed. Others recoiled as if madness were contagious. Get away from my stall! Mad woman, don't bring evil here! Children trailed behind her, chanting cruel songs, tossing pebbles. Men shoved her aside without apology. She stumbled once and fell. No one helped her up. Teresa felt the sting of gravel against her palms, But deeper than the pain was something sharper, the realization of how thin the line was between dignity and disgrace. So this is how they treat the helpless, she thought. Days turned into weeks. She slept near abandoned stalls under leaking roofs, by gutters that stank of rot. She was chased from corners, beaten with brooms, splashed with dirty water. Some spat at her feet. "Witch!" they screamed. "Evil woman!" She must have killed someone. A few claimed she had gone mad because of rituals she performed. Teresa listened, observed, remembered faces. At night, when the city quieted, she prayed. Not for strength, but for clarity. And then she saw Juliana. The girl was not loud, not flashy, just a small stall of bananas arranged neatly like they mattered. When the mad woman approached, the surrounding traders hissed, "Move away!" But Juliana looked up and met her eyes. Not with fear, with concern. The first banana came without words. Teresa accepted it slowly, heart tightening. Why kindness? Why now? From that day, Juliana became her anchor. When others mocked, Juliana defended her. When rain soaked her clothes, Juliana shared her scarf. When fever weakened her, Juliana bought medicine with money meant for food. Teresa tested her, sometimes refusing help, sometimes speaking harshly, sometimes demanding patience. Juliana never complained. At night, Teresa wept quietly, shaken. So such hearts still exist. One afternoon, when the sun scorched the market and tempers flared, Teresa spoke clearly for the first time. "I am not mad." The traders burst into laughter. "She's talking again." But she turned to Juliana. "I have a son," she said. "I want you to marry him." Juliana laughed softly, wiping sweat from her brow. "No problem, Mama," she said kindly, humoring her. Teresa smiled to herself. The seed was planted, and the test was far from over. Juliana's life had never been gentle. She learned that truth early, too early, on a morning when her mother failed to wake up. She was only 13 then, still thin with childhood, still believing the world listened when you cried. But the world did not listen. It moved on, loud and busy, leaving her behind with questions no one answered. Her father disappeared shortly after the burial. Some said grief swallowed him. Others said he simply ran from responsibility. Juliana never found out. What she knew was this: hunger became her closest companion, and the market became her home. By 14, she was hawking bananas. Not because she loved the work, but because bananas sold quickly. People bought them without thinking too much. A quick peel, a quick bite, no ceremony. Survival, like everything else in her life. Each morning before sunrise, Juliana swept the dusty corner of the market where she arranged her goods. She washed the bananas carefully, wiping each one with a clean cloth, even though no one noticed. Her stall was small, almost invisible, but she treated it with dignity. "God," she whispered daily, "just give me today." She didn't ask for wealth. She didn't ask for miracles. Just today. It was on one of those mornings that she noticed the mad woman properly. Everyone else had seen her before, heard her muttering, seen her stagger, watched her chased away like an unwanted dog. But Juliana noticed something others didn't. The woman was always hungry. She never begged loudly, never grabbed. She only stood nearby, eyes drifting from stall to stall, as if trying to remember how asking worked. That first day, when the mad woman approached Juliana's stall, the reaction was immediate. Don't come here. Drive her away. Mad woman brings bad luck." Juliana flinched at the shouting, but she didn't move. She looked at the woman's face, dusty, cracked lips, eyes clouded with something deeper than madness. Loneliness. Without thinking too much, Juliana peeled a banana and held it out. "Mama, take." The market fell silent. The mad woman stared at the banana as though it were a miracle. "Why?" she asked in a hoarse voice. Juliana shrugged, suddenly shy. "You look hungry." That was all. The woman took it with trembling fingers and ate slowly, carefully, as if afraid it might disappear. Tears welled briefly in her eyes before she turned away. From that day, a pattern formed. Every morning, Juliana set aside one banana, some days two. On days when business was bad and hunger clawed at her own stomach, she still shared. When customers complained, she apologized. When traders mocked her, she ignored them. Juliana, you are foolish, a pepper seller told her one afternoon. You give food to madness. Juliana smiled faintly. Madness still eats. The insults grew louder over time. Mad woman's daughter! You will end up like her. Children laughed. Men sneered. Women shook their heads. But Juliana remained. Sometimes the mad woman spoke nonsense, about voices, about journeys, about invisible enemies. Other times she was strangely lucid, asking questions that felt too sharp to come from madness. What do you want in life? She once asked Juliana. Juliana paused, surprised. Peace, she said finally. The woman nodded slowly, as if storing the answer somewhere safe. One afternoon, the mad woman collapsed near Juliana's stall. Her body burned with fever. Her breathing was shallow. People gathered, but no one helped. Leave her, she's cursed. Juliana felt fear tighten her chest, but she knelt anyway. She pressed her palm to the woman's forehead and recoiled at the heat. She closed her stall early that day. With the little money she had saved to buy rice, she bought medicine instead. She fed the mad woman water. She stayed beside her until the fever broke. That night, Juliana went to sleep hungry, but she slept peacefully. The next morning, the mad woman sat up and looked at her with clear eyes. Why do you do this? She asked. Juliana hesitated. Then she said the truth. Because one day it might be me. Something shifted in the woman's gaze. From then on, the tests became subtle. Sometimes the mad woman insulted Juliana, calling her useless, poor, foolish. Juliana never answered back. Sometimes she demanded help rudely. Juliana still helped. Other times she disappeared for days, only to return dirtier and weaker. Each time Juliana welcomed her. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the market thinned, the mad woman spoke with startling clarity. I am not mad. Juliana froze, but only for a moment. She smiled gently. Mama, eat first. The woman watched her closely. I have a son, she continued. He is a good man, powerful. I want you to marry him. Juliana laughed, not mockingly, but kindly. No problem, Mama. She thought the woman was simply dreaming out loud, creating a life kinder than the one she lived. But the mad woman repeated it, day after day. I want you to marry my son. Each time, Juliana responded the same way. Soft laughter, a nod, a peeled banana. She never argued, never dismissed her. And Queen Mother Teresa, hidden beneath dirt and rags, felt something she had not felt in years, hope. Not because Juliana believed her, but because Juliana respected her enough to listen. One morning, the mad woman said something different. Come with me. Juliana looked up. Where? To see my son. Juliana hesitated. The woman's voice was calm, certain. And for the first time, Juliana felt a strange unease ripple through her chest. Something was about to change. She just didn't know how much. The day the mad woman asked Juliana to follow her was a day the market would remember, though no one realized it at the time. The sun rose unusually hot, pressing down on roofs and human tempers alike. Traders argued over prices, customers complained loudly, and dust hung thick in the air. Juliana arrived early, arranged her bananas carefully, and whispered her usual prayer. She did not know that before the sun would set, the fragile balance of her simple life would begin to tilt. The mad woman arrived later than usual. Her steps were slower, her shoulders slumped as though carrying an invisible burden. Juliana noticed immediately. She abandoned her stall and rushed to her side. Mama, are you okay? She asked softly. The woman looked at her, eyes clearer than Juliana had ever seen them. There was no wandering in her gaze, no confusion, only intention. Today, the woman said, you will come with me. Juliana laughed lightly. Come where? To see my son. Juliana paused. For a moment, something like fear brushed her chest, but she brushed it away just as quickly. She had heard this before, many times. She smiled, peeled a banana, and handed it to her. Mama, eat first. The mad woman did not take it. I am serious, she said. Today, you will come. Juliana studied her face. There was a firmness there that unsettled her. Around them, traders were already watching, eager for entertainment. She's starting again, someone muttered. Juliana, don't let her deceive you, another warned. Juliana turned back to the woman. Mama, if I leave, who will sell my bananas? You will return, the woman said calmly. Nothing you give today will be lost. Juliana hesitated. Life had taught her not to gamble. Every missed hour meant hunger. Every risk carried consequences. But something in the woman's voice felt different. Not madness, authority. I will close early, Juliana finally said. The market erupted with laughter. See her following madness. Poor girl has finally lost sense. Juliana ignored them. She locked her small wooden box, lifted her tray, and followed the mad woman as she walked away from the market. They stopped a taxi on the roadside. Juliana froze. Mama, taxis are expensive. The driver rolled down his window, irritation clear on his face, until the mad woman met his eyes. Something about her presence made him straighten. Take us, she said. He nodded without argument. As the taxi moved, Juliana's heart pounded. They passed familiar streets, then unfamiliar ones. The buildings changed, the roads grew smoother. Trees lined the streets neatly. Juliana's hands trembled in her lap. Mama, she whispered, this place is not for people like me. The woman said nothing. The taxi finally stopped before a tall gate polished and guarded. Juliana's breath caught. She tried to open the door. I can't, she said quickly. They will arrest us. They will beat us. The mad woman paid the driver and stepped out. Come, she said gently. Juliana followed every step heavy with fear. The guards looked up and then bowed. Welcome, Your Majesty. Juliana felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Inside the compound, everything was quiet, controlled, immaculate. Flowers bloomed in careful symmetry. The house rose before them like something from another world. Juliana's legs gave way. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears spilling. I didn't know. The mad woman turned to her and smiled. Not the broken smile of madness, but the composed smile of power. Stand up, my child. Juliana shook violently. Please forgive me. There is nothing to forgive, the woman said. You passed the test. They entered the mansion. Servants stared in disbelief. Some gasped. Some bowed deeply. The mad woman disappeared into an inner room. Minutes later, she returned transformed. Gone were the rags. Gone were the dreadlocks. Before Juliana stood Queen Mother Teresa, radiant in silk and coral, dignity flowing from her like light. Juliana collapsed again, overwhelmed. I am Queen Mother Teresa, the woman said softly. Mother of Matthew Femi. Juliana covered her face, sobbing. I only sold bananas, she cried. I didn't know. Teresa knelt before her. I knew, she said. That is why I chose you. Juliana looked up, confused and afraid. I wore madness so the world would show its truth, Teresa continued. They chased me. You fed me. They insulted me. You protected me. They called me a witch. You called me Mama. Juliana shook her head. I am nobody. Teresa smiled. No, you are everything my son needs. Juliana's tears flowed freely, not from joy, but from disbelief. At that moment, she understood something profound. Kindness had been watching her all along, and destiny had been wearing rags. The mansion was silent in a way Juliana had never known silence could exist. Not the silence of poverty, where hunger hummed in the stomach and worries whispered in the dark, but a heavy, polished quiet, padded by wealth and guarded by power. The kind of silence that made every breath feel too loud. Juliana sat on the edge of a velvet sofa that looked too clean, too expensive, too important for her to touch. Her hands trembled in her lap. She had scrubbed them repeatedly in the gas bathroom, but she could still see the faint stains of banana sap beneath her nails, proof of the life she came from. She felt like an intruder in a dream. Moments earlier, the woman she had known as a mad wanderer had disappeared into an inner chamber with attendants trailing behind her. No one had spoken to Juliana except to offer water she could not drink. Her mind raced. What if I am in trouble? What if this is some terrible mistake? What if kindness has finally punished me? The door opened. Juliana stood instinctively. The woman who emerged was no longer the mad figure of the market, but she was not yet fully revealed either. She wore a simple wrapper, her hair neatly tied back, her face washed clean of grime and disguise. Without the rags, her bearing was unmistakable. Even without royal regalia, authority clung to her like perfume. She was composed, regal, awake. Juliana's knees weakened. "Mama," she whispered, unsure of what else to call her. The woman studied her gently. "Sit, Juliana," she said. Her voice was calm, steady, no trace of madness left. It was the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Juliana sat. "You are afraid," the woman said. "Yes," Juliana admitted. "Very." The woman nodded. "That is understandable. What you are experiencing is the collision between truth and expectation." Juliana did not understand the words, but she felt their weight. The woman walked slowly to a large window overlooking the gardens. "For weeks," she began, "you saw me as something society rejects, something people fear, mock, and discard. You never knew who I was. You never imagined what I own. You never suspected what I could give you." She turned back to Juliana. "And yet, you gave me everything you had." Juliana swallowed. "I only gave bananas." The woman smiled faintly. "No," she said, "you gave dignity." She took a breath, then spoke the words that would split Juliana's world cleanly in two. "My name is Queen Mother Teresa Femi." Juliana's heart stopped. "Widow of Chief Gregory Femi," the woman continued, "mother of Matthew Femi, heir to the Femi dynasty." The room seemed to tilt. Juliana slid off the sofa and dropped to her knees, her forehead touching the marble floor. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Teresa moved instantly, kneeling before her and lifting her chin with gentle fingers. "That is why you are here," she said firmly, "because you did not know." Juliana sobbed uncontrollably now, not from fear but from release. All the years of hunger, insult, invisibility, and endurance poured out of her at once. "I never wanted anything," she said through tears. "I only wanted to be kind." Teresa's eyes shone. "And that," she said, "is exactly what money cannot buy." The door behind them opened again. Footsteps entered, measured, confident. Juliana looked up. The man who stood there was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed simply but expensively. His face carried intelligence, restraint, and something softer beneath. Curiosity. "Mother," he said. Teresa rose. "Matthew," she replied. Juliana froze. This is her son, the billionaire, the man she had been laughing about in the market. Teresa turned to Juliana. "This," she said, "is the woman I told you about." Matthew looked at Juliana not with judgment, not with amusement, but with interest. His eyes lingered on her face, her posture, her nervous hands. "This is Juliana," Teresa continued. "She fed me when I was hungry, protected me when I was mocked, paid for my medicine when I was sick." Matthew frowned slightly. "You were sick?" Teresa met his gaze. "Very." Juliana bowed awkwardly. "Good afternoon, sir." Matthew took a step closer. "You can stand," he said gently. "Please." She obeyed, shaking. Teresa watched closely. This was the moment she had been working toward. "Son," Teresa said, "for weeks I lived as nothing in the market. I was chased, insulted, beaten, called evil. This girl, this woman, never once changed." Matthew's jaw tightened. "You went through all that alone?" he asked quietly. "I was never alone," Teresa replied. "I was observing." She turned back to Juliana. "I told you I wanted you to marry my son," Teresa said. "You laughed. You humored me. You never dreamed it was real." Juliana nodded weakly. "I thought it was madness." Teresa smiled. "And yet you never disrespected the madness." Silence stretched between the three of them. Matthew finally spoke. "Juliana," he said, "did you ever treat my mother kindly because you hoped for something?" Juliana's eyes widened. "No," she said quickly. "I didn't even know she had a son. I swear." Matthew studied her face. He had spent years in boardrooms reading lies dressed as confidence. This face held none of that. Teresa placed a hand on his arm. "This," she said quietly, "is who I want you to look at. Not her clothes, not her background, her heart." Matthew exhaled slowly. For the first time since his return to Nigeria, something inside him felt still. That evening, Teresa ordered something unprecedented. She summoned the household staff, the guards, the estate managers. When they gathered, she stood before them in full regalia, crown, coral beads, embroidered wrapper. The transformation was complete. "I am Queen Mother Teresa," she announced. "I disguised myself as a madwoman and walked among the people." Gasps filled the hall. "This woman," she said, gesturing to Juliana, "is the one who passed my test." Juliana's knees nearly buckled again. "This is no rumor," Teresa continued. "It is truth, and tomorrow the market will know." Outside, the night deepened. Inside the mansion, destiny had finally spoken, clearly, unmistakably, and with a crown. Morning arrived at the mansion wrapped in a soft, golden calm, but Juliana did not sleep. She lay awake on the wedding guest bed, staring at a ceiling more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. The sheets were soft, the room smelled faintly of lavender, and silence rested like a protective blanket around her. Yet her heart raced as though she were still standing in the noisy market. Everything felt unreal. Only yesterday she had been arranging bananas on a wooden tray, dodging insults and bargaining with customers. Now she was here, inside the home of a woman the nation bowed to, under the same roof as a billionaire she never believed existed. She rose before dawn, uncertain of what to do with herself. In the market, mornings had rules: sweep, pray, arrange goods. Here, servants appeared before she even asked, offering warm water, towels, food she was afraid to touch. "Please," she said nervously, "I'm fine." But they smiled respectfully. "She is our guest," one whispered. Guest. The word sat heavily on her chest. Later that morning, Queen Mother Teresa summoned her. Juliana entered the sitting room hesitantly. Teresa sat composed, dressed in regal purple, authority woven into every movement. Beside her stood Matthew, calm, observant, dressed in a simple white shirt and dark trousers. "Sit, Juliana," Teresa said gently. Juliana obeyed. "Today," Teresa began, "we returned to the market." Juliana's eyes widened. "The market?" "Yes," Teresa replied, "the same place where truth was revealed to me, the same place where you were seen and despised." Juliana's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because justice must be witnessed," Teresa said, "and gratitude must be honored openly." Matthew spoke for the first time. "My mother wants you to invite your friends, the people you know. We will bring them here." Juliana shook her head quickly. "Mama, please, they will laugh at me. They won't believe me." Teresa leaned forward. "They laughed at me too," she said softly. "Let them see." Within an hour, the mansion gates opened. A convoy rolled out. Black SUVs, tinted windows, armed escorts. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Guards saluted. Juliana sat in the back seat, and hands clasped tightly in her lap, her heart pounding so loudly she feared everyone could hear it. As they approached the market, panic seized her. "This is not right," she whispered. "They will think I planned this." Teresa placed a reassuring hand over hers. "You planned nothing, my child. You only lived rightly." The convoy entered the market street. Everything stopped. Traders froze mid-sale. Customers turned. Children stopped running. Conversations died in mouths. Cars like these did not come here. Security men stepped out first, scanning the area. Then Teresa emerged, royal, radiant, unmistakable. Gasps erupted. That's her! The mad woman!" "She wasn't mad?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Juliana stepped out last, and suddenly all eyes were on her. The same women who once mocked her fell silent. The men who chased the mad woman away stared in disbelief. The pepper seller who had insulted her covered her mouth. Juliana felt exposed, naked in front of judgment. Teresa raised her hand. "I walked among you," she said, her voice carrying effortlessly. "I was hungry. I was sick. I was insulted." No one spoke. "You called me evil," she continued. "You chased me. You threw stones." Some heads bowed, some faces burned with shame. She turned to Juliana and took her hand. "This girl fed me," Teresa said. "This girl protected me. This girl spent her last money on my medicine." A sob broke from somewhere in the crowd. Teresa's voice softened but did not lose its power. "Today I honor her." She gestured to Juliana. "Invite whoever you wish." Juliana hesitated, then walked slowly toward the banana stalls. Women stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Auntie Saad, Juliana said quietly. Uncle Baco. Mama Chinyere. Some burst into tears. Others fell to their knees. We are sorry, voices cried. We didn't know. Juliana nodded, tears in her own eyes. Come, she said simply. The convoy returned to the mansion, this time filled with market women, traders, and neighbors who never dreamed they would pass those gates. At the mansion, they were welcomed, not as intruders, but as guests. Food was served, seats were offered. Silence fell as Queen Mother Teresa stood again. This is the woman my son will marry, she announced. A stunned hush followed. Juliana trembled. Matthew stepped forward. I am not marrying her because she is poor, he said. I am marrying her because she is rich in heart. Juliana looked up at him, tears streaming freely now, not from fear, but from awe. In that moment, the girl who sold bananas realized something profound. Her life had not changed because of wealth. It had changed because kindness had finally been seen. And the world that once ignored her now stood as witness to her worth. The morning of the wedding arrived like a whispered miracle. Lagos woke differently that day. Streets near the Femi estate were closed before sunrise. Security personnel lined the roads in crisp formation. News vans parked at a respectful distance. Reporters murmuring excitedly into microphones. The air carried anticipation so thick it felt almost sacred. Inside the mansion, preparations moved with quiet precision. Juliana sat before a tall mirror, her reflection staring back at her in disbelief. Skilled hands worked gently through her hair, weaving it into an elegant style she had only admired from afar on other women. Her skin glowed softly under careful makeup. Nothing excessive, nothing false. Just enhancement, not disguise. She barely recognized herself. Not because she had changed into someone else, but because the world had finally chosen to see her. As the bridal wrapper was draped around her, Juliana's hands trembled. The fabric was exquisite, hand-woven, symbolic, rich with cultural meaning. Coral beads were fastened delicately around her neck, resting against her chest like a blessing. Tears welled in her eyes. She remembered standing in the market barefoot, defending a mad woman no one wanted. She remembered sleeping hungry after buying medicine for someone everyone despised. She remembered laughter thrown at her like stones. Now she was here. A soft knock sounded. Queen Mother Teresa entered. The room stilled instantly. She wore royal gold, her presence commanding yet warm. When she looked at Juliana, her eyes softened. My daughter, she said. Juliana stood and bowed instinctively. Teresa lifted her chin gently. Today you do not bow, today you rise. She reached into her palm and placed something small but heavy there. A ring, this belonged to my mother, Teresa said. It has blessed 3 generations. I give it to you not because you marry my son, but because you honored my soul. Juliana broke down completely. Thank you, she whispered. I never imagined. Teresa smiled. You didn't imagine. You lived rightly. Destiny did the rest. Outside, drums began to sound, slow at first, then joyful, announcing the moment the nation had waited for. Guests filled the grand outdoor pavilion, traditional rulers in rich regalia, politicians, business moguls, clergy, and dignitaries from across borders. But among them sat a special group in simple attire. The market women, banana sellers, pepper traders, men and women who once mocked and now watched with humbled hearts. They sat quietly, reverently. The procession began. Matthew stood at the altar, dressed in pristine, traditional attire, his posture calm but his eyes searching. He had faced hostile takeovers, ruthless negotiations, and global scrutiny, but nothing had made his heart race like this moment. When Juliana appeared, escorted by Queen Mother Teresa herself, a hush fell over the gathering. She walked slowly, gracefully, every step steady. Matthew's breath caught. This was not the girl of pity. This was not the girl of charity. This was a woman of strength. As she reached him, their eyes met, and in that instant, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. The officiant began, voice clear and ceremonial, blessing the union with prayers that spoke of humility, loyalty, and truth. When the time came for vows, Matthew spoke first. I searched the world for love, he said, voice steady. But love was already here, quiet, unseen, unannounced. Juliana, you loved without knowledge of reward. I promise to honor that love for the rest of my life. Juliana's voice trembled when she spoke. I have known hunger, she said. I have known rejection. But I never stopped believing kindness mattered. Matthew, I promise to walk with you, not for what you have, but for who you are. Tears flowed freely, among guests, among servants, among those who once doubted. When the rings were exchanged and the final blessing pronounced, applause erupted. Not loud, not chaotic, but deep and sincere. Queen Mother Teresa closed her eyes briefly. Her work was complete. At the reception, laughter replaced tension. Music filled the air. Food was shared generously. The market women ate side by side with senators. The walls between classes dissolved, if only for a moment. One by one, people approached Juliana. We judged you wrongly, a woman confessed. You showed us shame, another whispered. Juliana smiled gently at each of them. I hold no anger, she said, only lessons. Later, as evening settled and lanterns lit the grounds, Queen Mother Teresa stood to speak one final time. I disguised myself as madness, she said, her voice firm, because sanity often hides behind power. This girl did not serve me because I was a queen. She served me because I was human. She paused. Let this wedding remind us, greatness is not in crowns, but in character. Thunderous applause followed. As night deepened, Matthew and Juliana stood together beneath the stars, hands intertwined. Are you afraid? Matthew asked softly. Juliana shook her head. No, I've walked through worse. He smiled. So have I, but never alone again. And somewhere beyond the music and celebration, beyond the noise of a watching world, a truth settled gently into history. A queen once wore rags. A poor girl once sold bananas. And kindness, quiet, stubborn kindness, rewrote destiny. Moral of the story. True character is revealed when there is nothing to gain. Wealth and status attract many, but only kindness given to the helpless proves a pure heart. When goodness is practiced without expectation, destiny responds, and humility becomes the bridge between poverty and greatness. Thank you for watching till the end. This story reminds us that true kindness never goes unnoticed, even when the world is watching the wrong things. If this touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Let us know in the comments if you'd love a sequel.